Welcome to the WPL Book Drop Podcast. I'm your host, Becky Miller, Circulation and Marketing Assistant, cat lover, home project procrastinator, and taco pizza advocate. Joining us today is Mary Kabel. She is the library's third age coordinator. When she was a kid, Mary once bested her older brother at fishing. He was miffed that she caught about 5 crappies in the same pond when he didn't catch any. Mary always enjoyed listening to her mother's stories about growing up in Arizona, one of which was how she had to kill a rattlesnake with a garden hoe to keep it from catching her kitten. Ooh. And Mary was a high school exchange student in Japan when she was 16. She learned some Japanese, learned to love sushi, and attempted to climb Mount Fuji. Oh my.
Yeah, that was quite an experience for a Midwesterner, for an Iowan, because my experience with mountains was viewing from afar, right? Beautiful, Yeah, majestic. Stories of the West. Well, that's where my mother grew up, in the West. But anyway, those are some interesting stories she's shared. But climbing a mountain, of course, when you are a landlubber, let's say, well, it sounded like an adventure, and I was going to go on a hike. Here in Iowa, we'd take hikes and do a day trip to Backbone or some other park and enjoy a long hike. Excuse me. So anyway, that was just a side trip that they organized for the students to participate in. So I did. I was very eager to do it. Excuse me. But of course, I got up to that's about a 7,000 foot mountain. And I got up so far where a number of us in the group realized we were not going to be able to continue. So they organized a relief party to take those of us who needed to leave the mountain. So we did, but it was certainly an adventure.
Wow, it certainly sounds like one. So anyway, welcome to the podcast, and this is your first time joining us.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how long you've been with the library and a little bit about what you do?
Well, I've been with the library now, it's going to be 12 years. And when I started, I didn't know that I'd be here that long, but it's been an enjoyable position. Third Age Project is actually what I was hired to do. And it was a program. Here I have a volunteer handbook that we developed when we started the program because we used quite a few volunteers at the time. And the program was really begun, if you look at the records, they started with a grant from the library, LMST, I think that's the name of the technical group that supplied grants to libraries. And this was in about the year 2000. They applied for and received a grant, and they wanted to improve their services to senior facilities, to people in the community who maybe were not served, some of the older population, some of the homebound patrons who were not able to come to the library and use the library. So it was an effort to expand their reach to people who weren't able to use the library. And they developed several programs. Part of it was some book clubs they organized in the different senior facilities. So they had about 5 or 6 book clubs they started with, and they recruited, usually it was an activity director from the facility who led the book club. Sometimes it was the staff person from the library. So that was a real popular effort. They also expanded their large print materials in the library for people to check out, not only to take out to the facilities, but expand their holdings here so that there was a broader range of materials available to people. And of course, at that time, guess what was popular? Cassettes, audio cassettes. So we bought a lot of materials for the library to use, and they were well used, let's say, very popular. So those were the book clubs. And the collection, expand the collections. They took a number of the senior facilities, wanted to have some large print books just brought out for people to browse at their facility. So we made that available for, probably 6 to 8 different facilities wanted to use rotating large print collections, and we would also include some of the cassette tapes so people could, use those who needed those. There was also quite an interesting, a popular program was Homebound Service. So we also recruited, that's why we had the volunteer handbook for people who would really commit to helping one-on-one. They would maybe take one particular patron, get to know the patron, interview them for their reading interests, and help select materials to take out to the homebound people. So that was very popular. And through the years, I don't have a count on how many people we've served. It's been quite a few. But on a one-on-one basis, it's also available for people to, if they need something for short term. Let's say somebody said foot surgery and they can't get to the library. So they might need once in a while or a short-term basis of assistance for getting materials. So we did, quite a bit of programming. What has continued through the years has been most popular, I would say, are the book clubs. And I'm talking about Waterloo and Cedar Falls. So we have about 10 to 12 groups in both cities that take advantage of our book club service. And we purchase, and it's up to me to purchase, select, I will say, not purchase, the library purchases materials. And through the years, the state libraries, not state library, but the funds for purchasing materials have been supplied from the Enrich Iowa, which is a budget program of the governor and the state legislature. So we have funds available to purchase materials for the book clubs. So I just brought, here's my list, my current list of books that I have.
So you have a number of book club sets then, so you can rotate among the different facilities
Right.
and administer those book
Right.
clubs.
Right, that's 4 pages long.
Very good.
So I think we have a good offering of books.
So are you still doing the volunteer services, or did your role kind of become like the head liaison for making this program work?
Probably really more the, liaison, the administering of managing the collection, more selection, managing, weeding. I don't have as many volunteers now. That program has really, let's say decreased. And part of it, it's fine because I'm really able to handle the number of people who I have now on my current list. And given that I'm a part-time employee, I'm somewhat flexible in when I can be available to take materials out to people. So I think they appreciate that.
So
I appreciate that too.
You do go in and you take items to people. So if someone was, say, like homebound and they'd like to have the opportunity to read some books through the library, how would they go about getting that access?
Well, I get referrals, self-referrals from people. I get referrals from family members who may call me. They can call the library directly and say, my name is whatever, and please ask your homebound service person to contact me. Sometimes they can leave a message. The staff can leave a message on my voicemail, and I can call the person and go from there. So it's pretty easy. But I don't want it to be hidden because it is available to the community. And so sometimes I think people, especially when they're at a point of change in their life where a health issue has made them less able to get out, and they still are very active readers, and they don't want to feel limited. And certainly we want to make that available for them.
Sure. So is that just mainly books then that you're doing for homebound patrons, or do you do like audio? You talked about cassette tapes, or is it more just mainly books?
CDs now. We, of course, had to withdraw all those audios. Yes.
Yes, formats changed over the years.
Yeah, right. Formats have changed. No, I have several patrons who do prefer books on CD or can only use books on CD. They have visual limitations that mean they can't read a book anymore. So, no, I'm happy to do that. And we have quite a good offering, I think, of books on CD.
Yes.
Of course, now the formats are moving on to digital, which is another complication. But we do have offerings of digital books available from the library. So
Great. So the reason that we brought you on the podcast was not just to talk about what you do, but also to talk about some books.
Oh.
So you brought a couple of books that you've read recently. I'll ask you, what's the first title that you'd like to talk about?
Well, let me start with this one. Do you want me to show it?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
And I just finished reading this book pretty recently. And this is an author that I particularly have grown to like, Kazuo Ishiguro.
So that's called Clara and the Sun.
Clara and the Sun. Yes, an interesting book. And this is the time of year when a lot of the book lists come out, favorite books of the year, book awards come out, National Book Awards come out this time of year. This one was just on this week with New York Times list of 100 notable books. So I'm sure it'll be a book that people might want to pick up. An interesting concept here. I'd like to just refer to this little blurb about it from the New York Times. Clara, the solar-powered humanoid who narrates the novelist Ishiguro's powerful 8th novel, is an artificial friend, purchased as a companion to a sickly teenage girl. Through the robot's eyes and haunting mechanical voice, we encounter a near future in which technology, ominously, has begun to render humans themselves obsolete. So it's an interesting concept. How far will AI go?
Interesting.
Isn't that a timely topic for us to ponder? I think so. But it's very well written, very engaging. You relate to the human characters quite well. And this is one that I think I'm going to purchase for my book clubs to read for the coming year. But that's one I enjoyed.
Awesome. I have one that I'll share. I listened to this on Hoopla, the library, one of the library's apps. It has audiobooks, movies, music, graphic novels, and then of course ebooks too. The one that I read is The House of Gucci, a sensational story of murder, madness, glamour, and greed by Sara Forden. Of course, I listened to it because the movie is coming out and Lady Gaga's a star. I have not seen the movie, but I did listen to the book, and I'll just say the book was filled with a lot of details about Gucci, which is a fashion label. And it's started by this Italian family, and there's all kinds of drama between who's running what, and they all want to run the business a certain way, and they disagree with each other, and it's generations. So it follows the family, and it follows the business very closely, all the things that are happening inside there, the decisions that are made, how it became popular, and then there's the story of the young character who's like the son or grandson, and how he meets his wife and what kind of person she is. And the title says murder, so I'll tell you there is murder in it, but more than anything else, the story itself was about the business. So there's less detail or intrigue surrounding the murder, although it does open with the murder. So I was a little disappointed in that, but I did enjoy the book overall, and I'll probably see the movie when it's released on DVD here at the library. I'll check it out. But I did have some friends that went this past weekend, and they said they really enjoyed it. They liked it a lot. So who knows? Maybe I will go see the movie.
I'll probably see the movie. Sounds like that. Maybe I'll see the movie and then possibly read the book.
Yeah, I had to play that book on like 1.5 speed, because when I tell you there's some details about the business, there are a lot of details about the business. And
so
I'm like,
that can be distracting.
It's a little bit like, I don't know if I need to know every single thing that happened with the business.
Yeah.
Some of it's interesting, like how did they become popular? I think it's the grandfather got some famous people to wear like the scarves that they were making, and this is very exclusive and just for you, I'll make it beautiful kind of thing. So that was interesting, but other stuff was like, okay, this is this is too much detail.
Too much detail. Interesting how the Italian sense of beauty has influenced our contemporary fashion scene, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Sure. Gucci, Versace, some of the other popular names.
Yeah.
It should be interesting.
What's the other book that you brought?
Talking about Italy, that's a coincidence. I happened to pick up this one, Lisa Scottoline book, Eternal.
Okay, I've seen this book around at the library. Was it
I have
good?
seen it. I have never read anything by her before because I think her reputation is more of a suspense author, wouldn't you say? I mean, I don't know if you've read anything by her.
Well, longtime listeners of our podcast will know that I'm a nonfiction person.
So you really don't have a perspective.
I don't have a perspective.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't either, other than to think that my perspective or impression was her topics, her titles all seem to be suspense, current popular suspense. And she's a popular author.
Yeah.
So here's just as a side point, when I go to consider what I'm going to purchase for my book clubs, I have to buy about at least 10 titles a year, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So, other factors or characteristics I must consider when I'm purchasing books that over 100 people are going to read. I try to cover a variety of materials. Here's a list of what I'm considering for this year, Becky.
Oh, okay. So
And you see all the color markings because Kim Mashek has gone through and marked for me what's available and what the different prices. So I had seen that she came out with this book and saw a little blurb about the book, and I thought, well, it could be a romance book. Here we go. On the cover it says, an authentic, tender tale of love and war. Well, that sounds something that might, a description, it might appeal to people rather than just a pure suspense mystery. Mm-hmm. Those types of books don't necessarily make really good discussion books because once you've solved the mystery, the suspense is over and it's not a very satisfying discussion topic or book. So I thought, well, I'll read it first because I try to read all my 12 books before I decide to purchase. However, sometimes I just can't get to that because deadlines loom and deadlines approach and deadlines come. They're here all of a sudden, and I haven't found 12 books that I just think are the best books ever published this year that I want to present to my readers. So I did read this one, and I thought, well, I'm not quite sure. So I'll read some more in the book, 50 pages, 100 pages more. Well, I'm still not quite sure. I like this part about it, but I don't like that part about it. Well, I'll keep going. Well, now I'm halfway through. I better just stick with the book. Isn't this the pathway we take sometimes with books? We're not sure at the beginning, are we going to like it or not? So, all right, well, keep going. I don't have a definite reason for not wanting to finish the book. Something totally objectionable has come up, so I'll finish it. So, it's a little bit longer than maybe I wanted to. It's 468 pages, kind of a longer book for a fiction book. But in the end, I decided there's enough here to talk about. Set in Italy, World War II, Mussolini's in power. This is a fictional people. Actually, the author did take some historical facts. And some of the, there is one that I think the main character is there was a character who had those same circumstances in life. 3 teenage kids in high school. One is a Jewish man, a young man, a boy. The other boy is, his father runs a bar and was a soccer player, I believe. Well, and a bicycle avist, so he is a bicycle racer, and his brother also races bicycles, and they help out in the bar. And there's this beautiful young girl, and the two boys are vying for her affection. Well, she has to make a choice, and given the circumstances of what's happening in Italy at the time, it complicates their lives, and they have to deal with some pretty profound issues. But it's a love story, also set in a period of time that we're interested in reading about. You learn a little bit more about Italy and World War II, which I think for many of us we don't know quite as much about as we do of other theaters of World War II. So, but I thought it was certainly a worthwhile read, and I'm going to present that to my book club readers.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
It sounds really interesting. You're right about, I mean, I feel like I don't know very much about what happened with Italy, so that would be an interesting read.
Yeah.
I can't help but say, oh my goodness, so you can stop reading a book at like 100 pages? Wow. I can't do that. I feel like I have to finish it.
That's a whole different topic, isn't it?
I know, it really is.
Yeah,
but
it is an issue, isn't it? Yeah.
it's like, okay, but I feel like I should finish it. You know, it's very important to finish it. But I will abandon a book if it's really awful, but I try to stick through it.
Yeah, that's a point that when I'm talking with my readers in the different groups, especially with newer people, because a lot of my groups, you know, the participation can change. People leave, unfortunately. We all get to the point we're going to pass away, so they do suffer some losses. People come and go. So some of the newer members in the groups really have an adjustment period where they're understanding that if they're going to participate in a book club, that somebody else is going to be choosing what they read. And we all have particular preferences in reading, for sure. Like you say, you prefer nonfiction, and I like to read nonfiction too. But you know, I'm an equal opportunity reader, I guess. I'll take what looks interesting. So people do have to surrender their personal preferences in reading to someone else selecting, and it takes a while to be, what do I want to say? To be willing to trust that. You have to trust that someone else is going to select materials that are going to be appealing to read, engaging, interesting, characters that are somewhat believable, I would say, not too fantastical, make choices that maybe you might not make in life, but there is what the author has decided to present to create the story. So you have to be willing to trust not only your selector, you have to be willing to trust the author, which is another point too that I like to have people think about too. When you're reading material, do you trust the author? Has the author earned your trust by creating material, a storyline that is believable? And if it's too fantastical, we're going to call it fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. And if you want to read fantasy, that's great. I mean, sometimes it's really fun to read fantasy. Mm-hmm. But you have to realize that, to understand that. If you want to broaden your reading interests and your exposure, then you do have to be willing to let someone else present you something and be willing to read it. And commit to, if you're going to be in a book club, understand that, agree to that, go to the meeting, read the book, hopefully finish the book.
Yes.
Go and be willing to discuss it and listen to other people's viewpoints. So those are some of the complicated factors of being in a book club, which
yes.
I'm sure can take up a whole nother discussion with you.
Of course, yes.
Other people's perspectives too.
We just did an episode with Kim Chapman here, and she runs the must list at the library, which you can come to that and then just talk about whatever book that you just happen to be reading, or a movie or show that you happen to have watched recently. And that can be kind of nice for folks that don't want to be, stuck with like something that maybe isn't their taste. So, for folks that maybe don't want to do like a specific kind of, book title every month, you do have those other titles where you can just bring them and then, they could read them traditionally and talk with their friends if they wanted to as well. So
yeah, that's good. And for Muslims, I'm sure she made this point too. I'm sure It's probably not a closed group. Anybody who's interested can probably come and enjoy that, I would
Yes.
say.
Yes. Well, Mary, thank you so much for coming today to the WPL Book Drop podcast. It's really been a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Becky. I enjoyed talking about it. And I also would like people who are unfamiliar with these services at the library, take a point. I mean, if you know someone who is homebound and needs service, remember we have that. And I'll be happy to help people out. And the book club, even if you're not in a senior facility, being a book club, I think, is quite an enjoyable experience. So consider that too. But I'll also make a point too, before I close, I mentioned all the different books that I have in my collection, and those are available for other book clubs besides my senior book clubs to use and borrow. So I'm certainly willing to do that. I just need a little bit of notice to schedule it, because of course I do have to schedule these books out to the different groups, and so I do kind of need to know dates of when they would like materials. So.
Perfect. If you do have a book club and you want to get multiple copies, just let us know. You can call the library and then we can make that work.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Mary. If you liked today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you.